Three-run blast helping guide the Yanks to a 5-1 win over the Cleveland Guardians Tuesday. The Yanks get right to work Wednesday in the AL Championship Series, Game 1 against the Houston Astros. The NLCS opener went to the Philadelphia Phillies. And it is the breaking ball. Schwarber was ready. How far does this go? Second deck. Kyle Schwarber tees off. Audio courtesy of FS1. Kyle Schwarber taking Yu Darvish 488 feet with that solo homer. Phil's pitching holding the San Diego Padres to one hit in a 2-0 shutout victory. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
The NBA season started last night. Boston and Golden State were winners. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Begin in 1 minute. HR issues? At WPSL, WSTU, and La Gigante, fill your open slots in both English and Spanish. Call us 340-1590 for details.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WSTU is brought to you by Sailfish Roofing, offering excellence, honesty, and integrity in everything they do. Sailfish Roofing, 772-263-ROOF. Community roofing company you can trust. Sailfish Roofing. Now here's WPTV's First Alert meteorologist.
Your WPTV First Alert forecast calls for a cooler start to your Wednesday morning. Temperatures as you're stepping out the door in the low 60s. Afternoon highs today only reaching the low 70s. We'll see low humidity as well. Temperatures will start to warm up into the weekend, but still pretty pleasant, and the humidity stays in check through early next week. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Good morning, and it's good to be back in the studio this week. I want to thank Eric Miller for hosting the show while I was out of town, and Amy Pritchett. She's tuning in already this morning. One of our newest school board members says hello, John. And they had a great show last week, and we're talking a lot about what's going to be on the agenda as she becomes a new school board member. Today we're having Meet Your Candidate, which we've already met John. He's a repeat guest. John Snyder, he's our representative for the state of, representative for the House of Representatives, state of Florida. I'm going to get it out,
That's
John.
why I was keep going.
I know. I'm like, 1 week I'm gone. I can't even say it. But District 86. That's a new district number this year from your last run. But this is going to be your first time as an incumbent running for the Florida House of Representatives. And we're going to catch up, hear about what you've done the last couple of years and what's on the agenda and on tap for the next 2 years, we hope, right?
Well, hopefully, and good morning, Casey. Great to be with you this morning. And also shout out to school board member-elect Amy Pritchett. Great to have you watching this morning, and certainly looking forward to your leadership on the school board. And, it's been a whirlwind 2 years, Casey. I can't believe it. It feels like just yesterday I was up for election in the first place. And I think it's important to call out, I've already had some folks reach out and say, hey, I thought you were District 82. But right. I think it's important to remind the listeners that, every 10 years, one of our constitutional obligations in the legislature is to go in for redistricting. And so while really the footprint remains largely the same, northern Palm Beach, kind of southern up to middle and all of coastal Martin County. That is now District 86, so running for re-election hopefully for another 2 years in the Florida House.
Absolutely. And your district changed a little bit. We had Representative Toby Overdorf in a couple weeks ago, and I think his changed more than yours. You really took over a lot of the Martin County that he used to have. So it kind of consolidated your district more into Martin County, I
Yeah,
think.
it's all driven really by just population growth. And as we've seen, the more folks that move into a region, the more compact a district can look. So somebody actually made a comment on a social media post, hey, why are some of these districts so small? In total, in every district in Florida, there's about 180,000 Floridians that are represented by that district. So, again, the numbers are all equal, but I know we both share, and really the entire Treasure Coast delegation, really a commitment to our community, to our home here in the beautiful Treasure Coast.
100%. Before we get into all that, I've got to thank my sponsors. First of all, folks, it's still the hurricane season, and don't forget, make sure you have a reservation for your boat to keep it safe harborage, and really one of the best places to do that is the Indiantown Marina. It's one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities. It's located inland on the Okeechobee Waterway, very well protected, and while you're out there, it's a do-it-yourself or full-service boat yard, so any kind of work you need done on your boat, great place to have that done, Indiantown Marina. Give them a call at 772-631-3272, 631-3272. Also, don't forget about the best kept secret in Martin County. It's down in the pocket, and it is the Fish House Art Center. Tons of things to do for the entire family. If you have friends coming in from out of town as snowbirds start to come down, great place to visit. It's got craft beers, wine, 24 flavors of ice cream at their craft and creamery, boat charters. They've got a marina, local artist, Airbnb, just paddleboard rentals, all kinds of things. Look them up at thefishhouseartcenter.com before you head down, or you can give them a call at 221-5482. Again, that's in Port Salerno, in the pocket. And also, public service equals public trust. This is a reminder to vote for Raymond Denzel. Ray Denzel will work for all the people of District 86. Ray Denzel is a problem solver and will always have an open door for you to reach him. Ray Denzel won't just vote the party line. Ray will vote for what makes sense for the people. Early voting begins October 26th, or vote for Ray Denzel on November 8th. Political advertisement paid for and approved by Raymond Denzel, Democrat for Florida House of Representatives, District 86, which is your district, Representative Snyder. So here we are. We had Ray on a few weeks ago, and it's so wonderful to have you in the studio and let people know the differences between the two of you. And honestly, John, you have been hard at work. There's been so many bills over the last couple of years that I know that you focused on, and law enforcement was one of them. Our pillowcase burglars was another one. Yep. So let's talk a little bit about your accomplishments first. What are you most proud of?
Well, I'll start by saying, first and foremost, my viewpoint as a representative really is that this seat really does belong to the people. It's the constituents' seat. I just happen to be the one that they've chosen the last 2 years to be their voice in Tallahassee, and certainly working hard to get that nod once again. And that's really the key area I'm asking voters to really focus in on is really look at the track record. And over the last 2 years, I worked hard to really hit the ground running. I'm blessed to have some great individuals that I trust, one of which is my father, especially on the
all
public
love Sheriff
safety
Snyder.
perspective. And
yes.
So, I often say, growing up, he was my football coach. And now, to have someone like that to be able to go for really counsel, and he had served in Tallahassee before. And one of the things that, over the last really, 10 to 20 years, we've seen a steady increase year over year is this phenomenon known as traveling criminals, where, unfortunately, these folks are smart. Sometimes we wish they would put that entrepreneurial spirit to better use, but they've realized that oftentimes they are known to their local law enforcement, and so the ability to hop onto the interstate, hop onto the turnpike, try and slip into the communities and really wreak havoc on our communities has made it very difficult for law enforcement to track these individuals, because what happens oftentimes, they'll be arrested, charged, but by the time they get back to their home communities, they're gone. A simple slap on the wrist, and they're right back at it again. And so after an unsuccessful try in year one, Last year, we were able to get it over the finish line and bring a penalty enhancement. So if you purposely leave your county of residence to commit a burglary, now law enforcement and state attorneys will be able to enhance that charge by 1 degree and hopefully send some of these bad actors to prison.
Fabulous. And that is one thing Sheriff Snyder is really good at is, hashtag wrong exit. We all know it. And, following them on Facebook, they have the most wonderful commentary when they catch these criminals. So, any more enforcement that you can bring our way is certainly a huge help. A couple comments here through the Facebook. Barbara Osborne, thank you for tuning in. She said our grandchildren are thriving at Treasure Coast Classical Academy, and she wants to thank you for your support of TCCA. So,
well, thank you, Barbara. It really is it's a community effort, and we just saw. In the last couple days, Governor DeSantis made a big announcement, a huge win really for all of Martin County. We had 8 public schools that received their A rating and were eligible for just really incentive funding to keep up the great work. Treasure Coast Classical was one of those and really has become just another shining jewel in the crown of our Martin County schools. And so
great
list,
to
hear that great report. Absolutely, yeah. Nearly 1,000 scholars on the wait list. And
wow.
So
it says a lot right there.
Absolutely.
1,000.
Having choice really is the name of the game. That's something, again, as we look back over the last 2 years on the campaign trail, I said it, education was a passion of mine, and that's something where I really tried to put my money where my mouth is, supporting critical legislation to bring our per pupil funding up. We're now over $8,100 per pupil that goes directly into our public school system, raising teacher pay. We often hear just some of the horror stories that can happen in public education. Oftentimes, it's not at any fault of our teachers. We see the facts are in the reading scores.
Right.
Our kids are reading at 51%. That's not because necessarily the teachers are failing. It's because we've tied their hands with over-testing, and that's why we repealed basically the FSA testing.
Good news.
Trying to force these kids to learn to attest has proved disastrous. And so we really want to untie the hands of our educators, get back to our core knowledge. That's why we're requiring civics education, financial literacy, calling out the dangers of communism. And so really that's what we're trying to do here in Florida, continually raise the bar and make education a cornerstone of our success and really be a top 5 performer and continue to lead the nation on this front.
That's really huge news with the education front. And a couple things you said there. We're going to teach them what communism is. Financial literacy, that's something that, it seems like every child should learn. It's unfortunate it was something that was overlooked for so long. So you really have keyed in on some super important topics for our children. And with that, Amy Pritchard also said, without John, I don't believe the parental rights bill would have been successful. And she wants to thank you for your advocacy on that. And that was another huge bill this past year.
Yeah, well, again, thank you, Amy. And certainly one thing about Tallahassee is it is a team sport. So that's kind of you to give me that much credit. But was a bill I was happy and proud to co-sponsor, and something that it was really gross what the mainstream media did to mischaracterize that bill, giving it a title with words that you cannot find anywhere in the text. And really, it's a pretty simple and straightforward concept. It's a debate over the role of the school district and the role of the parent. And it's my position and the position of the Florida legislature, now Governor DeSantis, and signed into law, that parents demand and deserve a right or a seat at the table. It's their right to know the types of curriculum, the types of surveys, and exactly what is being taught inside the classroom. And that's really what happened during COVID-19. The veil was pulled back, and parents had an opportunity to hear firsthand just some of the nonsense that is being perpetrated, again, through, I think, third-party actors that have infiltrated our curriculum delivery. And so we're not going to let that happen here in Florida, and we're going to stand up for parents and our students, and it's something I was very proud to support.
Again, we're speaking with Representative John Snyder. He is our Republican incumbent for District 86 here in Florida. Remember to vote, folks. November 8th is the big voting day. I think early voting starts on the 26th of October.
That's right, and vote by mail is happening now. So a little plug for those of you that if you have that ballot sitting at home, hope that you check that bubble for John Snyder, District 86.
There you go. John, what's coming up for the next session? Assuming you get reelected, what are the different areas that you're going to focus on?
Yeah, I think we've seen especially the devastation from Hurricane Ian, and has only exacerbated the concern that we have of our rising property insurance. We did have a special session in the last few months, really trying to address the excessive litigation and the fraud that's happening in the marketplace, but we know there's still work to be done. So that's something that I hope and I know I will be working very hard on, is trying to reverse our one-way attorney's fees and really disincentivize this cottage industry where a few bad actors in the legal field have teamed up with a few bad actors in the contracting field and have really single-handedly brought havoc upon our insurance market. We're going to get that turned around. I will say there is no magic silver bullet. This is not something that we got to overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight, but certainly, we could see there's still a lot of work to be done, and one of my top priorities heading into this next session.
That's good to hear, because I know home insurance is the way it's skyrocketed this year, and everybody is so worried because of the devastation over on the West Coast, what's it's going to do to our rates again. So certainly I'm glad that's a top priority.
And if I can just make a quick plug
Yes.
on this, one of the things that we're seeing and is very concerning on the West Coast is the number of uninsured individuals when it comes to flood insurance. That is something that is not standard on your homeowner's insurance policy. That's a federal program. I would strongly encourage, even though we are not nearly at the risk of the storm surge that the folks in Southwest Florida are, we never know what kind of rain these storms will bring. And so that's just a public service announcement in general. Reach out to your local insurance agent. If you don't have flood insurance, get it. That really can be the difference between being made whole or having a total loss on your property in the event of one of these major storms.
And Representative Snyder, to that point, we have these king tides, and then a rainstorm or a hurricane comes like that, and you think you're never going to flood. People, they get flooded out just from the streets. Down in Hope Sound was a huge issue.
That's right.
So these things can really happen anywhere. So I think that's really good advice. What about affordable housing? Is there anything on the horizon through the state? I know there's always that argument, should government be involved or not, but people are really frightened right now because the rental rates just keep going up.
Well, that's something that we certainly are mindful of in Tallahassee. Aside from funding certain programs, there's really not a lot from a conservative principle point of view that can be done to address affordable housing. I'm not a proponent of rent caps. Those do not work and really just becomes a minimum standard of mediocrity that is not good for the consumer and certainly not for the property owner. So what we did do in the legislature was we funded to the tune of $650 million what we call the Sadowski Fund, which is a trust fund that was voted on, put on the ballot by the citizens of Florida over 20 years ago. And what that does is send money to local governments to administer, helping first-time home buyers get over that initial hurdle of a down payment. So that's something that has been done. We know, again, at the end of the day, so much of the affordable housing projects come down to local governments and the will to actually approve some of these certain types of projects. Again, that's not to point the finger at local government, but it's how can we together have that conversation, but also engage the community, our business owners, because this really is an all hands on deck issue that affects us all. Property insurance, again, we've already talked about that.
Yes.
Is certainly a contributing factor. And so is just overall inflation. The cost of gas, the cost of milk, the cost of everything has continued to rise. We see that elections have consequences, and that's why hopefully we take the White House back in 2024.
Yeah, speaking of that, our FPL, our electric bills, I think everybody is seen a near doubling on their electric bill. That's something that's very shocking right now. And that is, as Representative Overdorf had mentioned when he was here a couple weeks ago, something that was dictated more through our President of the United States on natural gas prices. So
Yeah, it's a serious issue. I haven't seen maybe a doubling per se, but I can tell you, having been on Fort Myers Beach and seeing the ground zero of what some of our dollars have really gone to, the hardening of our infrastructure with these concrete poles. I could tell you, when you look at the proof is in the pudding. Just in the Southwest Florida, some of these smaller municipality ran electric and utility companies just could not perform at the level, certainly of FPL or some of the other large service providers in the region. And so it's a delicate a tightrope to walk. But I could tell you, having seen that, I felt a lot more at ease paying my FBL bill this month, certainly, than I ever have, because when the power goes out, you need that immediate response. I know that's something they do a great job on.
Oh, it's incredible.
But again, overall cost increases in the energy space as a whole, we're feeling that. Again, the legislature, to address that, we did pass the gas tax and meant it for this time here in October, where we know this is the busiest time that Florida residents are on the road. So bringing tax cuts that directly impact Floridians, that's extremely important to us.
It was huge.
It's huge. And we did. We passed the largest tax cut in Florida history this last year, making diapers. As a dad of a toddler, I did not put that amendment in, but I was certainly happy to support it. Making diapers tax-free, our energy appliances, our storm-resistant windows and doors, because at the end of the day, that's government's role. It's not to fix the problem. It's how can we create incentives to let the marketplace and let consumers really take charge of what works best for them and make that happen.
Really support our small businesses around the state, too. It sounds like that's one of the biggest roles, I think, that government plays, and that's something Governor DeSantis, huge shout out. He welcomes these businesses to this state, and we've done so well over the last couple of years. COVID shut down much of America, but we remained open. And, what impacts have you seen in Tallahassee? You must have more revenue coming in just from new businesses.
Well, I could tell you a couple quick things. What has happened in the last few years really put the clearest comparison and contrast that you could ever ask for when you say, how do you compare one style of government to the other? When you look at California, Illinois, New York, when they were shutting down churches but allowing Home Depot and the liquor store to stay open, that just flies in the face of common sense.
Right.
When you're mandating kindergartners wear masks while school board leaders in California are partying and dancing, it's the utter hypocrisy. When you look at extremely high tax rates and deficit spending compared to a balanced budget in Florida,
right,
that's what allowed us to be able to say, we've got reserves, we don't need to panic, and we certainly are not going to take away the rights and the liberties of Floridians. And that's really what this election and what 2022 is all about. It's keeping Florida free. Charlie Crist has gone on the record. He supports vaccine mandates. He supports mask mandates. My opponent has gone on the record. He supports locking people down and saying that the government deserves to say who can go where and who can do what based on a shot that they've put in their body, and we wholeheartedly reject that here in the state of Florida. I saw it last night in the Senate debate. Val Demings openly abdicating and saying that the border is in great shape right now. We have, again, very clear decisions. That's why people are moving to Florida at a record pace. It's to keep Florida free. We're going to keep doing that, and we're going to continue to be a beacon for freedom for the entire nation to see.
Again, we're speaking with Representative John Snyder. He is running for as an incumbent for District 86, Florida House of Representatives. And really, Representative Snyder, that's big differences that you just pointed out in our personal freedoms. I think most of us appreciate them and here in Florida. And wow, the differences we did see here between ourselves and other states was it's mind-boggling, honestly. And I've met so many new people that moved here because they couldn't work elsewhere. So they moved to Florida just so that they could work. So huge things that are on the horizon. Locally here, I know I've seen a lot of people say that there was another accident, unfortunately, on the water.
Yeah.
On the water. Somebody hit one of the markers again, and they want lights on the markers. Is there any discussion, do you think, of anything like that coming up to try and make that safer? Or maybe even boating safety courses for people to realize they need to go slow at night because you just can't see.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I know that there is a boater safety component to obtain that your license or to get that permit to drive on the water. Certainly open to exploring ways that we can continue to drive boater just overall awareness. I know one of the things that we looked at in the last couple of years. We know this is, unfortunately, it's not isolated to just here in the Treasure Coast. This is a worldwide issue where you have boats traveling at night in these congested, tight waterways. Right now, the biggest problem is the technology to be able to adequately, maintain and have this continual lighting. So, obviously something that whenever we can try and address an issue, we want to. It's just, what is the cost? What is really the feasibility on this? And so if there are suggestions or feedback out there, certainly would welcome those to our office because we know the waterway is important to us. It's a critical part of our life, our economy here for those, both professionally and recreationally. So would love to hear anything out there that could really address that.
Truly, and appreciate it, Representative Snyder. We're running out of time here. How can people reach you if they want to donate to your campaign or might have a question for you?
Yeah, so electjohnsnyder.com is the best way to find us online. You can also search for us on Facebook, John Snyder for Florida. And that for those, if you're available this evening, we'll be out with the Republican Party of Martin County at 430 US 1 and Indian Street.
Thank you so much, Representative John Snyder, Republican, District 86. Up next is Mayor Troy McDonald from the City of Stuart.